So now the next part is what are the different kind of contract drafting services you can offer. So now we have already discussed that, okay, this is the way to approach people. This is the way to establish your clientele and get your initial work. But what are the things that you can offer, and what are the things you really need to know before you get into this kind of work? So first is commercial agreements. So these are very easy to get because this every business needs, irrespective of whether it's a small sweet shop or it's a huge hospital. They will all need all of these things. First is employment agreement. Almost everybody needs employment agreement, and you'll be surprised that number of big companies who have 1 point appointment letter, absolutely no contract with most of their employees. So you drafting a good employment agreement, because this agreement is not going to be a one time use. They are going to use it for their consultants, for all their employees in future, and inevitably there will be issues related to salaries, there will be issues related to work, there will be issues related to work assignment which will crop up. So these are very good place to start drafting contracts, employment agreement. And trust me, most people think that employment agreement are very easy to draft, but you really need to understand what kind of services your client offers, and your employment agreement will vary. For instance, if you're drafting an employment agreement for a company that manufactures plasticware or that manufactures a different kind of products, then you will focus on IP, you will focus on non-disclosure of confidentiality, you will focus on sourcing. But on the other hand, if your client is a hospital, then when you're drafting employment agreement, you will focus on working hours, you will focus on regular visits, you will focus on termination clause. So how do you change your employment agreement based on the industry that you're offering? Can you hear me now? Is it better, Rakesh? Yeah. And all of these are drafting services which students can provide. If you're a fifth year law student and if you draft well, we've had people see the only problem that happens if you're a student is that it is less likely that somebody is going to give you work without prior experience. So then your online presence, then things like Upwork, then things like upskilling, it is important that you get your initial first few clients with startups, because startups, and especially startups with young students who cannot pay much, they come up very use because they will give you your initial work, your word of mouth publicity, your online reviews, and then you'll be able to build your clientele. So if you're a law student, then focus on getting your initial work with smaller companies. Do not jump and think that you will get very good drafting work initially. First focus that you get smaller work, you do that well, build that trust with your clients, and slowly you'll start getting better agreements. So I explained employment agreements, IP assignment contracts, non-disclosure agreement, franchisee agreements, consultancy agreements, and basic service agreements. So these are all the commercial agreements that, irrespective of how big or small the organization is, they will always need. Second is agreements related to property, commercial lease agreement, leave and license agreement. So this everybody needs, irrespective of where they are located. Can somebody tell me uh, what is a if I'm missing out on anything on agreements related to property here, something that you will get more often than even these commercial lease agreements. So basically rent agreements. So if you'll see most of the smaller companies, they do not enter into long-term lease agreements. They will have a rent agreement, small rent agreement, which specifies the kind of work they are doing. So that then there will be commercial lease agreements, leave and license agreements, sale deed, JDA, wills, and gift deed that you can always offer. These are not just for corporate clients, even individual clients. Then hardcore commercial agreements. So once you have moved on, once you have established a clientele, once you have established a certain amount of work, then slowly you'll start getting and understanding how big ticket contracts work. You can always charge for those. So there will be clients who are looking to raise capital. So they will need somebody to explain to them loan agreements, because most of the time you cannot negotiate it, but your client needs to understand the terms and conditions really well. So that is where you will come in. An asset purchase agreement. So most of smaller companies, when they buy something, that is through asset purchase agreement rather than other modes of transport. So you should know this is a very simple agreement to draft, but yet it needs a lot of specification on the type of transaction that is happening. So being good with asset purchase agreement is definitely going to help you a lot. Third is distribution agreement. So you will see a lot of companies who have franchisees, who have distributors and smaller companies. So you can always represent the distributor, explain to them that what are the terms and conditions of the agreement, what are the implications that it will have on their businesses. Then agreement for startups. So this we have been saying startups since last 40 minutes. So first and foremost, the first question that when you will be advising any startup is कि हम सर LLP खोले, partnership खोले या company. So that is the first thing. After that, you'll start with doing the registration, drafting the partnership agreement, co-founders agreement, MOA, AOA. So understanding these agreement is very important. And trust me, co-founders agreement is something that is more that most good lawyers also cannot draft. So if you have a good understanding of a co-founders agreement, you're going to build a very good relationship with your clients. You're going to prevent lot of losses, lot of litigation in future. So a well drafted co-founder agreement is going to ensure that 2 years, 3 years later, when they will realize that what is the kind of work that you have done. And then agreements in emerging areas of law. So if you're somebody who understands IP well, who understands data privacy, website licensing, these most companies are not even aware of. So when you are having your workshops after this, through your discussion, you can always offer them these services and stand out, because most of the lawyers or even clients are not aware that they need these agreements. So when you study a market and you see a certain kind of disputes, so you can always have very specific agreements for those clients. And then website related documents. So like I said, that now most of the companies are moving online, they are selling online. So and they spend a lot of capital in establish lot of capital in ensuring